After a lot of setbacks, I finally landed my first software engineering job. Or at least that's what I thought. I applied for a position advertised as a graduate full stack software engineer, but my contract listed me as a consultant level 1. They offered me 30k per year. The longer I stayed, the more I realized I needed to leave as soon as possible. The problem? My contract stipulated that if I made it past probation, I had to give 3 months notice to leave. That means I'd be stuck there for 3 whole months. On my first day, I met one of the senior engineers. Her name was Amy. Amy had attended the same university as I did, just 5 years earlier. She was cheerful and made me feel really welcome. A few days later, I met another senior engineer. Her name was Laura. She turned out to be really cool too, as you'll see. Both Amy and Laura introduced me to the company, and we quickly became friends. I was assigned my first ticket, and that's when I started to notice some issues. Our front end was built on top of a bunch of JSON files that defined where everything went. Styling was difficult, and we had to use a front end framework called YUI, which had lost support back in 2014. Upper management had no intention of upgrading it because it was part of their proprietary software, for which they had a patent. Bureaucracy, am I right? About a month in, Amy told me she'd handed in her notice. She landed a job at Spotify. I was really happy for her, but soon after, everything started to unravel. Since it was her last month, she and Laura would often discuss how bad things were at this job, and I kind of got introduced to the reality of what was going on here, and she opened my eyes to my potential future. She complained about the outdated front-end framework we were using, and how there were so many days where we'd do nothing, and how that could potentially be hurting our careers. The application we were in charge of was already finished for the most part, and only needed maintenance. I was getting really anxious because I had nothing to do on most days. Good because I could play games or focus on something else. Horrible because I wasn't learning anything and switching jobs would be more difficult. Since she was ranting, I took this opportunity to ask her about why my contract said I was a consultant. She explained to me that everyone at the company was hired as a consultant and that there was no such thing as a software engineer title here. The main difference between a software engineer and a consultant is that consultants are much more client-facing. Over the next couple of days, I found out what this meant for me. The company had acquired several other companies under the same umbrella. Our subdivision dealt with a logistics niche. 1 month into my job, it was revealed that we had to go on-site to provide training for people using the software. The main problem? On-site meant random factories in the middle of nowhere that were freezing cold to keep the food at the appropriate temperature. Amy and I were sent out there, and we spent the whole day just shaking and teetering. At that point, I started looking for a new job. Not just me, but Laura as well. I'd been working here for a month, and I had only worked on 1 ticket, which I'd finished in my first week. Laura told me they were planning to have me learn the system and spend half my time training clients and half the time maintaining this application. By the time Amy left, I'd been here for 2 months. It was just me and Laura holding down the fort. We would get on calls together to job hunt, and she helped me pad my CV. I was worried about how it would look, that I only had 2 to 3 months of actual coding experience. She advised me to focus on Java, HTML, and CSS, and not mention YUI. She also gave me tips for asking questions during interviews to avoid falling into the same trap. I'm going to share them with you. Tell me one thing you like about your current role. If they can't think of an answer to this, or it's something like, I just like my teammates, it might not be a very good role. Tell me one thing you think could be improved. This question is the Uno reverse of what they usually ask you. What is your biggest weakness? What percentage of time will I spend coding versus doing other tasks? The answer to this should align with what you want. It's possible you actually do like interacting with clients. Not me though. I was under time pressure. I had no experience other than this job and hadn't learned much about programming during my time here. If I passed my probation and then found a job, I'd be stuck here for 3 more months. Knowing that I only had 1 month left before my probation ended, I decided to kick it up a notch. On the other hand, Laura, with her 5 years of experience, secured 3 offers from top companies, each offering her around 70k per year. Her notice period was 2 months, whereas mine would be 3 months after probation. However, she wanted to wait for one more company that she was really excited about, so she didn't hand in her notice yet. If I remember correctly, and do not quote me on this, they'd offered her around 90k. 2 days before my probation ended, I got a call from the HR manager of a startup. They set up an interview with the CTO where I explained my situation, and he was very understanding because he said he'd been in a similar position before. I signed the contract the night before my probation was up. I sent my resignation just in time and only had to give 2 weeks notice. That morning, I was on a call with Laura, discussing my new role. She suddenly said, "1 second, I'll be right back. I think they're calling me into a meeting about you leaving." Somehow she'd forgotten to mute herself, and although I couldn't hear what upper management was saying, it was clear to me that she was defending my decision to leave and pointing out how they had misled me. In other words, she had my back, and I was really thankful to her. After that meeting, I got 3 phone calls from upper management offering me more money and a new project, urging me to reconsider. I let Laura listen in, and she advised me on how truthful their offers were. It turns out they weren't truthful at all. The new project was even worse regarding outdated technology. Laura suggested that if I were to accept, they should draft the contract with those terms, which would take me past my probation period, and then I'd be stuck again. I worked there for 1 more week before they let me terminate my contract. It was an awkward last week because there was nothing much to do, and they just sort of paid me to sit around. In the end, I left that job with Laura's support and moved on to a much better opportunity. That experience taught me valuable lessons about workplace honesty, career progression, and the importance of seeking environments that foster genuine growth and development. Laura went on to get a huge salary increase, and she seems pretty happy at her new job. I, on the other hand, went on to work at that startup, where I learned a lot and had many cool experiences. But if you want to hear how that ended, you should go check out the following video. My hope in sharing this story with you is that you'll be able to identify red flags in any new position you're applying for. And if you're going through something similar to what I was going through at that time, leave me a comment down below. I'd love to hear more about it. If you found any value in this story, please drop me a like and consider subscribing. Let me know if you enjoy this type of video. Huge thanks to everyone who liked the last video because that's what encouraged me to make this one. Thanks!